At the heart of an endless winter, the engine that sustains it awakens within a cavern, a grand cathedral of ice and shadows. Within the confines of this frigid lair, far removed from the cycles of day and night that mark the passage of time in the world above, she lies encased in a cocoon of ice, a testament not to the passage of time, but to the sheer power of her essence. Even in slumber, her formidable energy draws the frost to her, weaving a crystalline shroud that mirrors the unyielding cold of her domain. A chill, deeper than the perpetual frost that keeps the surrounding land in a frozen stasis, precedes her rousing. The air shifts, a prelude to the power awakening within, as if the cave itself inhales in anticipation. Eyelids, heavy with frost, lift to unveil eyes gleaming with the cold blue light of the northern stars. The air, crisp and biting, floods her lungs as she inhales, a conqueror reclaiming her dominion from the ice. Her first breath is a tempest of frost that sends spiderweb fractures racing across the surface of her frozen bed. Rising, she moves with a blend of power and elegance. The ice surrenders to her will, shattering and falling away in a cascade of shimmering fragments. Her muscles, sculpted from the essence of winter's fury, awaken with the raw power of the untamed north. Her cavern, a grand cathedral of ice, houses not just herself, but her hoard, a collection of treasures amassed over countless years. Each piece, from gleaming gems to artifacts wrapped in the lore of fallen civilizations, remains undisturbed, precisely as she left them. Her eyes, bright with an otherworldly glow, survey the contents of her lair. Every formation of ice, every swirl of snow, each trinket and coin compared and known against the backdrop of her perfect memory. The unchanged state of her cavernous home is quickly noted, a silent testament to the timelessness of her rule. It's the various scents that pierce the solitude, not within her sacred sanctuary, but carried on the cold drafts that slither their way down. Humanoids, it seems, have dared to venture too close, their presence an oddity in the vast wilderness she claims as her own. She unfolds her wings, heralding her ascent from the confines of her icy chamber. Moving with the silent grace of a blizzard's onset, she approaches the entrance of her cave, her very being an embodiment of the relentless winter. The world outside unfolds before her, a realm unclaimed and wild, the mountains and forests standing as silent sentinels to her sovereignty. The intruding scents, faint yet distinct, mars the purity of her icy realm. Humanoids, a faint scent nearby and a stronger scent further east, are noted as variances. Alongside this, the richer, deeper scent of prey, suitable to sate her hunger, whispers through the cold, a primal need that has dictated the rhythm of her existence since time immemorial. With a calm that belies the deadly predator within, she considers her next move. Her decision is not driven by impulse, but by a calculated understanding of her domain, her needs, and the most efficient means to satisfy them. The presence of humans in her territory is an irritation, yet one overshadowed by the more pressing call of a hunt. She stares off, her gaze sharp as the icicle-like teeth that adorn her maw. The hunger within her, the call of the wild, the essence of the hunt, beckons her. With a disdainful snort that sends shards of ice dancing like diamonds in the fading sunlight, she shifts her focus to the untamed heart of her icy dominion. With barely a thought, and with a gesture as effortless as it is laden with ancient magic, she flicks her tail. The air shimmers momentarily, a dance of light and shadow, leaving no trace of her presence. Disturbed by her passage, only the snow betrays her ascent into the sky, drawn upwards in a spiraling vortex reaching high into the air. It's a subtle defiance of nature, the snow's feeble attempt to cling to the traces of her. Elevated above the realm, her invisible form cuts through the biting air, a spectre unseen but profoundly felt. The world below unfolds like a vast tapestry beneath her, a landscape she knows as intimately as the scales that armor her body, yet there are imperfections that draw her eye, inconsistencies that mar the perfection of her icy domain. Her gaze, still as sharp and penetrating as when she surveyed her hoard, notes the disturbances. Tracks in the snow, too erratic to belong to the natural denizens of her realm, speak of the intruder's passage. A dark smudge against the otherwise pristine white, perhaps a camp or a temporary shelter, intrudes upon the wilderness. It's an affront, a scar upon the beauty of her icy kingdom, and her heart, cold as the winds that buffet her now invisible form, registers this violation with a quiet intensity. Aloft in the silent embrace of the winter air, unseen by any who would dare to look up, her attention is drawn by the richer tapestry of life that thrives under her reign. As she glides unseen above her realm, the discrepancies caused by human presence fade into the background, overshadowed by the vital pulse of the hunt. The large game below, unaware of their sovereign's invisible scrutiny, continue their existence, a challenge and a promise to the predator above. It is this, the essence of the wild, that calls to her, a primal song that speaks of the hunt's purity, of survival and dominion. The scent of large game, a beacon amidst the cold, guides her senses. It cuts through the chill, more compelling than the traces of those who have infringed on her territory. Her heart, an engine of ice and ancient magic, beats with the thrill of the hunt, attuned to the rhythms of the wild creatures that roam her lands. Bear and mammoth, their forms etched against the snow-covered ground, move with a grace born of survival in this harsh wilderness. These are the marks of her true subjects, the living heart of her icy kingdom. In this moment of silent observation, she is a spectre of judgment and grace, her focus narrowed to the dance of life and death that has played out under the watch of her stars for millennia. This is the true essence of her domain, governed by ancient pacts and primal laws that none of these short-lived creatures could hope to understand. As she soars, a silent spectre above the snow-clad expanse, her keen eyes catch the lumbering forms of a mammoth herd moving through the icy wilderness. Night has fallen, yet she can easily make out their massive bodies, cloaked in thick fur, trudging heavily against the backdrop of the eternal winter. Among them, she discerns two that will serve as worthy prizes for her meal. A decision made, she prepares to strike, the thrill of the hunt igniting the ancient magic within her. With deliberate intent, she breaks from her cloak of invisibility, her form materializing just above the herd with a dramatic surge of power. The moment she reappears, her body begins to blur and undulate, a mesmerizing display of magic that renders her form both terrifying and elusive. Landing with the devastating force of a winter storm, she crushes the first mammoth under her weight. At this moment, her frightful presence unfurls like a dark wave, emanating from her in a palpable force. The mammoths, already scattered in panic, are gripped by an even deeper terror. Their cries fill the air, a chorus of fear that marks the chaos of their flight. Without hesitation, she unleashes her icy breath upon the fallen mammoth beneath her and another, singled out by the intensity of its fear. The air crackles as her breath, a tempest of frost and ice, engulfs them both. In a flash, the two mammoths are encased in a gleaming sheath of ice, their figures frozen in a chilling embrace. Perfectly preserved, they are the embodiment of her hunt's success, two magnificent beasts claimed by her might and magic. With a predatory grace, she extends her massive claws, ensnaring the frozen carcasses of her prey. Then, in a display of her profound power, she channels her magic to open the fabric of space itself. Around her and her prizes, the air shimmers, the very ether bending to her will. With an effortless command of her ancient power, she and the mammoths are enveloped in a vortex of arcane energy. In the blink of an eye, they are gone from the snowy plains, the disturbance in the air and the scattering herd, the only signs of her departure. They reappear within the confines of her grand cathedral of ice, the mammoths landing with a muted thud on the cavern floor. Here in her lair, surrounded by her amassed treasures and the eternal ice, she has returned victorious, her hunt concluded with the effortless might of her being. In the solemn quietude of her lair, she begins with the crushed mammoth, its flesh serving as a simple beginning to her feast. Her icicle-like teeth, perfectly suited for such a purpose, slice through the frozen carcass with ease. Each bite is methodical, the taste bland, a mere preparation for the gourmet experience awaiting her. This prize, while nutritious, lacks the intricate flavors she truly craves, its essence a mere shadow compared to what is to come. Turning her attention to the second mammoth, she anticipates the feast. This one, frozen solid in its last moments of terror, promises a meal of unparalleled taste. As she bites into its icy form, her teeth cutting effortlessly through the frozen meat, she savors the infusion of fear that permeates its flesh. The flavor is intense. Each mouthful is a delicacy, rich with the essence of fear, a flavor that elevates the act of eating into a ritual of power and predation. The meal is not just sustenance, but a celebration of her dominion over life and death. However, her indulgence is cut short. The scent of these humanoids, intrusive and insistent, pulls her attention from the exquisite feast. Despite the captivating taste of the second mammoth, she finds herself unable to properly savor her feast, while the presence of intruders mars her domain. Reluctantly, she abandons the half-consumed prize, the rich flavors of fear and frost still lingering on her tongue. With a silent command to the ancient magics in her blood, the air shimmers briefly around her as she vanishes from sight once more. She again takes to the skies, propelled by a sense of curiosity that overrides even the allure of her meal. She soars towards the nearest source of the disturbance, the dark smudge she had observed from above, now identified as a group of adventurers gathered around a campfire. Before descending into the midst of the unsuspecting adventurers, she casts a spell that weaves through her like the chill of the north wind, granting her the ability to converse in whatever pitiful language these intruders might use. Silently, with the grace of a falling snowflake, she lands close to the camp, her presence a mere gust. Invisible and silent as the night itself, she holds her breath and inches closer to the unsuspecting camp, a wraith amid a silent snowfall. The adventurers, gathered around the poorly concealed flame of their campfire, remain oblivious to the predator that moves amongst them. She stops just outside the firelight and watches, their faces illuminated by the flickering light, each line and scar a story of battles fought and hardships endured. Her gaze sweeps over the group of adventurers with a predator's calculating scrutiny. To her, these creatures are mere curiosities, Their differences to each other of little consequence beyond the immediate advantage or threat they might pose. The one with the scarred cheek, standing with a natural authority and confidence, is of a kind known for its resilience and strength. Greenish skin and broad-shouldered, with a muscular build typical of those who toil the land or wield heavy weapons in battle, they are often seen as the backbone of any fighting force. To her, he is simply the warrior, his physical prowess unmistakable. Beside him sits a woman, slender and lithe, her movements possessing an effortless grace. Her ears, longer than those of her companion, hint at a lineage attuned to the Fey world, a people who move with the whisper of the wind and the silence of the forest walkers. The longbow slung across her back and the quiver of arrows affirms a preference for distance in combat, a potential challenge to counter with speed or stealth. Her eyes are sharp and discerning, hinting at a strategic mind, possibly the tactician of the group. A young man with pale blue skin sits next to a staff that bears the marks of arcane knowledge, his attire adorned with symbols that pulse with a faint light. His kind is known for their affinity with magic, their lives intertwined with the weave of the arcane. A wielder of the mystic arts, his potential for unpredictability, making him an interesting, if not dangerous, variable. The hooded figure, his features sharp and defined, belongs to a race renowned for their agility and stealth, masters of the unseen and the unheard. Knives tucked away in his boots and belt suggest further skill in stealth and agility. This one, likely to strike from the shadows, requires a keen eye and faster reactions to anticipate and counter. Finally, the young woman they clearly protect seems ordinary in her appearance, holding a babe in her arms. Her kind is ubiquitous, often overlooked by the mighty and the magical, yet possessing a resilience and a strength of spirit that can surprise even the most formidable foes. The dragon sees her simply as the caretaker, her role defined by the life she shields from the harshness of the world. Satisfied, she sheds her cloak of invisibility as she assumes a guise more palatable to human senses. "Hail," she calls out, her voice so weak and brittle it seems as if the effort costs her the last of her strength, barely carrying over the crackling of the fire to reach the assembled group. The adventurers and the young woman with her babe, momentarily arrested by the sudden appearance, turn their faces toward the sound. In the dim glow of the campfire, the figure of a young woman materializes from the shadowed confines of the wilderness. Her appearance is that of distress personified. Her fiery red hair, though vivid against the backdrop of the night, is matted and unkempt. Her skin, pale as the snow that blankets the ground around them, is drawn tight over her features, accentuating a look of exhaustion and weariness that seems too profound for her youthful visage. Her guise is clad in protective fur clothing, though it hangs on her frame in a way that suggests it has been many days since she had the comfort of warmth or safety. The furs, meant to shield against the cold, are disheveled and frostbitten at the edges. The wariness in their faces is momentarily overshadowed by the instinctive need to assess and perhaps aid. The young woman with the babe shifts, her gaze moving from the child in her arms to this unexpected visitor, her protective instinct clearly roused. The adventurers, however, their instincts honed by their rugged lifestyle, react with caution. The burly man with a scar steps forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword.
"State your business,"
he demands, his gaze searching the darkness behind her for any sign of deceit or danger. "I'm lost," she claims, a shiver in her voice as she wraps her arms tighter around herself. Please, I thought I was headed towards the settlement to the east, but the storm... Her voice trails off, inviting their sympathy. The archer of the group, armed and watchful, narrows her eyes but then looks to her companions. We can't just leave her out there, she says, a note of reluctant compassion in her voice. The burly man with the scarred cheek, his hand still on his sword, steps closer, his stance protective yet wary.
Who are you? How did you come to be alone out here?
He asks, his tone firm. My name is Aira, she says, pulling her cloak tighter around her shoulders. I was traveling to the settlement to the east when a storm caught me off guard. I've been wandering for days. The woman, her bow and quiver casting long shadows behind her, interjects. The east? You're far off course. What's your business there? Seeking to weave a believable narrative, Aira responds, I was seeking my family. They moved there last spring, and I lost contact with them. Her eyes, a mimicry of human emotion, look to the ground in feigned grief. The adventurers exchange glances, a silent conversation passing between them. The man with the staff, marked by arcane symbols, speaks for the first time, his voice cautious.
My name is Joran. You're welcome to join our little caravan.
Gratitude colors her response, a carefully measured smile touching her lips. Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't seen your fire. The hooded figure, quiet until now, leans in, his eyes narrowed in suspicion.
You've done well to survive out here on your own, Aira. You must be quite resourceful.
With a modest smile, she deflects. One learns to adapt. But truly, it was luck. What about you? Have you all been traveling together long? She inquires, her voice tinged with feigned exhaustion and curiosity. Not long, really, replies the woman with the bow, her gaze flickering towards Aira with interest. We came together to cross the tundra. The roads are non-existent, and there's safety in numbers. Aira nods, adding a fabricated detail to her own story. I've heard of bands of thieves in these parts. I was foolish to travel alone. The warrior of the group chuckles softly.
Thieves would be the least of your worries out here. It's the wilds that are the true danger. And rumors of a dragon,
he adds, his eyes glinting with a mix of fear and fascination. A dragon? Aira feigns surprise, though inwardly she relishes their unwitting proximity to the truth. Surely you jest? Are dragons not creatures of legend?
Oh, they're very real,
interjects Joran, his eyes alight with the thrill of the unknown.
And this one, they say it's as ancient as the ice itself, guarding treasures untold.
Their enthusiasm grows, talk turning to tales of dragons from their homeland, of valor and treasure, each member adding to the lore with a mix of hearsay and wishful thinking. Aira listens, her expression one of captivated interest, all the while noting their misconceptions, their underestimation of the very creature that sits among them. And what would you do if you met this dragon? She asks to no one in particular, a dangerous edge to her curiosity that goes unnoticed by the group, wrapped up as they are in their adventuresome fantasies.
We'd fight, of course,
declares Cade, the hooded figure with a smirk, drawing one of his knives and flipping it casually.
And claim the hoard for ourselves. Imagine the glory, the wealth.
The young woman they're escorting, Alara, holding her babe close, looks on with wide eyes. But aren't dragons fearsome? Is it wise to seek one out? Aira watches them, a smile playing on her lips. Yes, tell us, she presses. Would you truly seek to challenge such a force of nature? The warrior, Thorin, caught up in the discussion, adds,
I wish it would reveal itself to us. To see a dragon up close, it'd be a tale for the ages.
At this, a flicker of irritation sparks within her, a flame of anger at their audacity and wishful thinking. To wish for her reveal, as if she were a spectacle for their amusement. She masks her emotion quickly, burying it beneath a layer of feigned worry, though inside the tempest rages. This enthusiasm, this foolish courage, could be twisted to her advantage. They want a dragon? They would get one, but not in the way they expected. The irony of their own desires being their undoing pleases her, a simple yet fitting retribution for their insolence. She will wait until they sleep, she decides. Surely one will keep watch, the rest will be caught even more flat-footed. She will mock them and toy with them, demonstrating the dangers of their wishful thinking.
Imagine,
Cade muses, his voice tinged with excitement,
tracking it down after we've seen to our charge. A dragon's horde could set us up for life.
Yeah, says the archer called Lena, her hands gesturing animatedly. And think of the scales. I've heard of a smithy in the south that pays fortunes for just one. They make the finest armor. Their talk is bold, yet filled with the bravado of those who have never faced a dragon, of those who see only the reward without understanding the cost. She listens, her expression carefully neutral as Ira, while inside she seethes. Their ignorance, their audacity to speak of her hoard and scales as mere commodities to be claimed, stokes a cold fire within her that is all too eager to burn. She can feel her instinctual desire to shred them limb from limb welling up inside her, her plans fading into insignificance.